Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video we have to talk about the sales month of November because, well, it's officially over, and, well, most of the month was complete garbage, but there were some times that were not complete garbage, and we're going to discuss that in today's video. But before we get into the video, as always, if you want to save time and money the next time you purchase a car, link to my car buying guide in the description down below, and if you want to see more content just like this, then I recommend you subscribe because I post these videos every single day. Let's get into it. So let's chunk up this sales month into 10-day periods. So the sales month of October, first off, was a month that was kind of like a rude awakening for a lot of dealers because they were realizing that the market was really contracting. And again, it was like one of the worst months that they had in a long time. And so leading into November, they weren't exactly sure what was going to happen because November is typically slightly better than October because, holiday shopping and all that kind of stuff, Black Friday deals, right? But that's not what happened at the start of the month. At the start of the month, the first 10 days, dealers didn't sell nearly as many cars as they expected, and it became really worrisome because they were getting cars delivered to them, from their respective manufacturers, and people weren't buying them anymore. And on top of that, there were cars that are getting delivered that are considered really desirable in the market that aren't selling. And so it was just, again, kind of more of a rude awakening. And so dealers were finding themselves in a situation where cars that they were able to sell at MSRP, they're now having to discount under MSRP. And then cars that they were able to charge decent markups on, they're no longer able to do that. They're having to cut down to MSRP and sometimes even under MSRP on some of these cars just to put a car deal together. And so first 10 days, rude awakening for dealers. Now, the next 10 days were kind of more of the same, where dealers were kind of slowly chugging along, but all they were really experiencing was taking delivery of more and more cars from their respective manufacturers and selling fewer and fewer cars. And so they started to kind of change their advertising by the middle point of the month, because at the beginning of the month, dealers were saying, hey, you got to come in now, you got to buy this car or it's going to be gone. Whereas by the middle of the month, the advertising changed to, hey, we have tons of cars in inventory. We've got this huge selection. Come and look at them. I mean, one dealer in particular I can think of had no new inventory at the beginning of the month. And then by the middle of the month, I started to see ads from this dealer, basically boasting how they had 50 new vehicles in inventory and how it's the greatest thing ever and how you need to visit so you can see all of these new vehicles. And, that's something that dealers are always really good at, is just completely shifting, how they are basically putting this stuff to the public. Because if there's no inventory, it's like, get it before it's gone. If there's tons of inventory, it's like, hey, there's tons of inventory. You got stuff to choose from. Just come down now, right? They always kind of put a positive spin on it, which is kind of funny. And this leads me into Black Friday. Black Friday is historically a pretty good day for dealerships, just like most businesses, because it's the day where you can basically mark up your product and then mark it back down and get people to buy because they think that they're getting a special deal when in reality they're paying the same amount of money that they'd always pay for the product. But it now says 40% off because they just marked it up to mark it down. And this Black Friday was actually pretty good for dealers. I actually had a situation where I went to go film at a dealer during Black Friday because I assumed that it would be pretty quiet considering everything that's happened during the month. And I got kicked out because they had too many customers. Now I'm over-exaggerating a little bit. They basically told me to come back another day and film another day because they were completely full of customers. Like, they were having to have people from their service department go on test drives with customers because of how many people were showing up to purchase a car. And so it was a really good Black Friday for dealers, but it wasn't enough to make up for the month because, again, you can have one really good day, but if you have a really crappy month overall, like, it's not enough to make up for it. And so it was one of those situations where it was like a little too late for the month of November. And this now leads to the end of the month. So after Black Friday, there was another little push for quote-unquote Cyber Monday. I did see quite a few dealers be pretty busy on Cyber Monday. Some dealers didn't really get any traffic that day, but then that led to the official close of the month. And again, it was another little push, but it wasn't massive enough to really make up for the deficits in the month of November. And so it was kind of like this just overall really crappy month with basically a couple good sales days. Now, this slight decrease in overall sales volume would not be a huge issue if profitability was still high, but profitability is no longer high, and this is actually a really big issue. So first off, accessories is a place that dealers lost money. So over the course of most of the pandemic, dealers were able to make quite a bit of money off of accessories they put on vehicles and, vehicles that were fully built out. But now people aren't wanting to pay for the accessories, and they definitely aren't wanting to pay out for these built out vehicles. Like dealers that I film for that have, a bunch of big souped up trucks, they aren't selling them. People aren't going in and buying those anymore. People just don't want to pay the money, and they don't want to deal with like the gas mileage associated with something like that. And so that's something that I'm noticing is there's a lot less profit from accessories because people just, they don't want to pay for it. And then when it comes to the actual vehicles themselves, dealers are making less profit per vehicle right now, because even though there are dealers that are still asking markups, they're not getting those markups. That's something you guys need to understand is, yeah, there are a few people that are still stupid enough to pay these markups, but most people just aren't doing it. They're giving these dealers offers that are significantly under those markups, and sometimes the dealers are saying yes. Sometimes the dealers aren't smart enough to catch on to what's happening in the market currently, and so they're saying no. And well, to those dealers, good luck selling that car in the next few weeks when interest rates increase again and when buying demand decreases even more so because overall buyers' sentiment decreases. And so you have profitability on a per car basis decreasing. And then on top of that, the finance departments within dealers are also making less money. What I was hearing across the board with dealers is that they are getting a bunch of cash deals, and these cash deals are not buying finance products. So they're not buying warranties, and they're not buying any sort of extended service contracts. They're basically just paying cash for the car, and that is it. And then on top of that, because there are so many more cash deals, these dealerships aren't getting the same amount of kickbacks they get from lending institutions for sending those people to those lenders. And so you see these finance departments making substantially less money for the dealership. And so dealers are literally making less money on every single profit front that they have. So what does this mean for dealers and the overall car market? Well, this is showing that dealers are starting to steer in the right direction if you are a customer, because prices are coming down and markups are pretty much disappearing across the board. Yes, like I said, there are some dealers that are still asking big markups on vehicles, but they're not getting them. Those vehicles are just sitting. I have been just basically going and looking up vehicles that are typically marked up and seeing how long they're sitting on dealer lots, and they just keep getting older and older. People are not willing to pay the money that dealers are asking for cars. And so it really is a game of chicken where, these dealers are eventually going to have to come down with prices because the customers are waiting and the dealers are waiting. And it's like, okay, which one's going to budge first? Is the customer finally going to buy and pay that marked up price? Probably not in today's market. And so that dealer is going to have to lower their price if they want that customer to move out of the way, I suppose. And so that is really the big thing that's happening, is we are finally getting a much larger softening of the market, and dealers are just frankly starting to focus more on volume because, again, manufacturing is still not up to where it was prior to the pandemic, but it is increasing. And so dealers are realizing that instead of trying to swing for the moon on every single car deal, if they just try to make a little bit of money on every single car deal, then they'll be in a much better situation and they'll be able to sell more of their inventory. And so that's why we're starting to see these discounts, and why I'm actually starting to see dealerships accessorize vehicles in a much different way. Because again, during the course of the pandemic, if there was a vehicle that wasn't sold, then what dealers would do is throw thousands of dollars at that vehicle. So like if it was like a pickup truck, it would get, huge tires, lift, wheels, just everything, right? Whereas now what I'm starting to see is dealers are only putting like window tint, maybe clear bra on the front, just stuff like that still costs money, but is not nearly as expensive because it's a much easier sell than, a crazy souped up truck or something like that. I know I keep mentioning truck, but there's stuff that applies to sports cars and other types of vehicles that dealers can, basically throw onto those. And so again, it's a big shift in the market. It's in the right direction for consumers, and I only see this continuing as time goes on. So how can you use this information to help you out as a buyer? Well, all you really need to know is that you have a lot more negotiating power at this point. So even if you have local dealers that still want MSRP or over MSRP for cars, just make them offers that you think are within reason. Again, there are a lot of online sources where you can find invoices for new vehicles, or at least rough approximations of invoices, so that you know what you can offer on a vehicle. And yeah, the dealers sometimes are going to tell you no. They're going to say pound sand, and maybe they're going to be mean to you about the situation. But you know what? It never hurts to ask. And if they say no one week, then maybe wait a week or two and then ask again. And then if they say no again and that car's still there, ask again and just keep asking. And eventually the dealer's going to have to fold because they don't want to sit on cars forever, especially new cars, because the longer that dealers sit on these new vehicles, the worse off they are from an allocation perspective with their manufacturers, and then the more interest that they are paying. And as interest rates increase for everyone else, they also increase for dealers. And so it's costing them more and more money as time goes on. So eventually they'll get in a position where they're like, yep, we got to curb this car. We got to get rid of it no matter what. And then that's when you, as the patient buyer, swoops in and takes advantage of that deal. That's going to sum things up for today's video. Hopefully this helped you out. Again, if you want to see more content just like this, then I recommend you subscribe because I post these videos every single day. I'll see you.